Hi, AT from CNC at Home. I'm going to go to Paramount Granite and take a look at their CNC machine. As a gift, I'm going to make a coaster for them that has the company logo on it, their address, and phone number. So I'm going to start out with the 108 by 108 millimeter template, throw their logo on, and then convert the logo to an edge trace. The video capture wasn't getting my menus, so we're not seeing that, but I did just do a basic edge trace, and so I'll get that moved up to where I'm going to position that, get it sized. And the text didn't come through very well. The image itself is pretty small, and the text just didn't do very well. So I'm going to put in real text and replace the edge trace with the real text. So we'll start with the word Paramount. We'll get that typed in and see if I can get the correct size and spacing for the letters. The default size is obviously too big, so we'll shrink that up. Move the text over on top of the edge trace, see if we can get that aligned approximately where the actual text should be and how big it should be. Once that's in place, we'll get that on its own layer. Want to get the actual graphic of the mountain on its own layer as well. But first, let's get rid of the edge tracing of the text here, because we don't need that anymore. Get the mountain on the same layer as my new text. And then add in some more text for Granite Company. Get that positioned. Once that's all lined up, we can go ahead and get rid of the original graphic. We don't need that anymore. And let's get their address keyed in here. And we'll get that position kind of centered up here. I'll go into my library and get this set for a white tile. Get all my cutting parameters set for my blue layer. I'll add the phone number in, get that positioned, and then we should be ready to burn. The tile looks like it turned out nicely. Let's go ahead and get over to Paramount Granite and talk to my friend Aaron about what they do. I'd like to introduce you, Aaron Berquist. You're the owner of Paramount Granite here in St. Michael, technically.
St. Michael, Minnesota.
St. Michael, Minnesota, yeah. And if you could just kind of go through a little bit of what you guys do here, high level, and
Sure.
then maybe focus in and talk a little bit more about the CNC work that you do.
Yep, so we're a countertop fabrication company that does all types of stone, whether it be a natural stone or a quartz product, or there's some other manufactured stones, sintered stones. And we primarily do countertops for kitchens and bathrooms and some fireplace surrounds and that type of thing. But essentially we go out and measure with a laser digital measure equipment, and then program our machines to cut to that size, and then we run it through we've got a water jet, saw jet, and then hits our CNC, and then sometimes things get finished by hand a little bit, and then we install it to a variety of customers, residential, commercial, some direct consumer, and some through contractors, and throughout the Twin Cities, the 7-county metro is our primary area, and then we do go kind of anywhere in the state if someone really wants to use us. So,
Okay.
yeah.
So is the water jet, that's also a CNC machine?
Yes, I mean it's a robot, so
Right.
but yeah, it's still applying the same language in terms.
Oh, that's right. So it's a robot arm, isn't it? That
Correct.
actually has the water cutter
Right.
on it. Okay. Which I guess that's
Yeah.
sort of CNC.
We use AutoCAD for programming our robot. We use Alpha Cam for programming the CNC. So,
Okay.
so we do use two different softwares. They don't necessarily talk to each other.
Far be it from them
Yeah.
to talk to each other. And the CNC machine, it has a tool changer, obviously. I believe on both sides there are tools.
Correct.
How many tools does that hold?
Good question. I should have answered for you.
So I think from the picture that you showed me,
36.
is it that many? Okay, I was guessing. I thought there was 12 on each side, but there may be more than
There's
just
more than 12, yeah.
Is it more than 12?
We'll have to count, but I think
Okay.
there's.
So it's a lot.
It's a lot.
Do you use all those,
For
or-
us to take a rough cut water jet stone and take it from that to polished, it's 7 tools.
Okay.
So there's 4 metals and 3 polishers that take it all diamond impregnated polishers. So.
Right, and that's doing the surface and the edges.
Just the edges.
Just the edges. It's not okay because the surface then is done on.
Surface for us already comes polished, so
Okay.
we generally, very, very rarely touch the surface of the stone.
Okay.
Our tools are encapsulated, so we're putting a small chamfer on both top and bottom of the stone, so
Okay.
it's not a sharp edge. But,
Right.
But yeah, we don't. It just does the edge. So.
Okay. You had mentioned that your tools were encapsulated. What does that mean? The tools encapsulated.
Well, the simplest way to say it, it's like a C-shaped, meaning that it touches the top of the stone and the bottom of the stone. Or for us, it's upside down, so the top of the stone is the bottom and the bottom of the stone is the top. But essentially, it's taking basically just taking a sharp edge off on both sides.
Okay, and you're getting both the top and the bottom
Both
at the
the top
same
and the
time
bottom.
then. Okay.
Traditionally, you only had your, what we call round.
Mhm.
You only had the round on the bottom of the tool, top of the stone, so the surface of the stone, and the bottom. Some shops left it, some shops would touch that with a diamond pad, basically like an angle grinder pad. We've just found that if you do encapsulated tools, it takes a little bit more time to tune up your tools when you get a diamond that's off, but we save so much time when it comes to after we take that piece off the stone. We don't have to touch near as many of them by hand.
Okay, so it's pretty much ready to go then
Ready
once
to
it
go.
comes off that CNC machine.
Yep.
And I assume then on the corners that really helps too, so you don't end up with a really sharp corner underneath on the
Correct.
bottom side that you would
Correct.
otherwise.
Yep.
Not that anybody would ever butt into that or hit their
Yeah.
head. Might-
Or rub their hand.
Or rub their hand on it. It's like, your
Yeah.
countertop.
Exactly.
Okay. And then if I remember correctly, you had some really cool clamps that you use on this. They're not just a clamp that grabs on, it's like a vacuum.
Yes.
It uses compressed air and then it creates a vacuum and it sucks that down.
Correct. Yep. Everything is held on with a vacuum pod. All the stone is put on upside down, so the polished is down. And,
Okay.
And that way, the primary point of that is so your height is always exactly the same for the top. What would be the top of the countertop? But
Okay.
that's how everything is set that way. So,
Okay.
so you could have a thicker stone, and it wouldn't matter. It matters for us because we're using encapsulated tools, but many shops don't use encapsulated tools. We just find that it just helps take a hand step away by getting that bottom round on. So,
Right.
but because of that, stone comes in a variety of thicknesses. Most of it's close, but close isn't good enough for encapsulated tools. So,
Right.
so the first tool that runs on our CNC is a gauging wheel. So basically takes everything to the exact thickness that we need to. So everything that runs on that machine, unless it's thinner, is exactly the same thickness. So our tools don't wear unevenly.
Okay, interesting, because that was going to be one of my questions, was how do you gauge the thickness? And you basically assume it's going to be X thick or thicker.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. We manually caliper the stone in about 2 or 3 spots before it gets set on there.
Sure.
And then program that in right at the machine. Program is all done outside the machine in a programming office, and then the programs are sent to the machine. But we do manually set that depth because that plays a role in that gauging wheel, but more importantly, it plays a role in when we set these stones on. It's all done with a projector, a laser projector.
Right.
So the thickness of the stone will vary where that laser line is. So.
And you say you have a variety of stones. Obviously, you've got granite, marble, and you've got the quartz. And then did you say quartzite as well?
Quartzite, yep. That's primarily. I mean, there's some limestone, sandstone, shale, that type of thing, but that's so rare to deal with those.
Okay.
Slate, once in a while we'll have a slate stone come through here, but it's pretty rare. Quartz is probably, it's chasing natural stone. It's almost 50-50 with at Paramount as far as how much we process of either or, but natural stone still is our primary by a little bit. It's not a big margin anymore, but it's still, we do more natural stone than.
Right. As far as the thickness goes, I know it's about an inch or so. Is there a specific?
Inch and 5/16. It's 3 centimeters roughly. I mean, when we say roughly, that's because it all gets cut with diamond wire blades, and depending on the quarry and how it was processed, we've seen a variety of thicknesses. You can get to 1.125. Quartz now, the man-made, is generally in that 1.21, 1.2, 1.19. It's not as thick. It's not its true 3 ECM as some of them. So,
okay. I would imagine it's more consistent probably in its thickness from sheet to sheet.
For the most part, it is. Quartz has a tendency to bow a little bit. So,
oh, interesting.
The resins in there, if their processes aren't up, if something, either I'm assuming it's they didn't cool as fast or slow as they should have. Sometimes we'll see some bows in that stone. But for the most part, it's more consistent than natural stone. So.
Okay. And is that bow then literally on both sides, so it's the whole sheet
Correct.
Bowing then?
Yep.
Do you do anything about that when you get a sheet like that?
We reject it as often as we can, but there are certain times where that's all they have. The supplier that supplies it, that's all they have. So we'll try to mitigate it as best we can, but it's sometimes hard. And when it comes to, when we're talking bow, if it's standing on a rack, you or I may or may not see it. It's not one of those where somebody's countertop has a low spot in it.
Every spill goes to the center.
But those, when you're dealing with .000,
right.
It matters. So it's not so much something that people would see. It's just, it causes issues with tooling. With the vacuum pads, it's generally not too big a deal. If you can see it, we reject it.
Okay.
Is kind of what it is. So.
Okay, because I know now some of the material comes in, it has like a fiberglass mesh on
Correct.
the back.
Yep.
Yeah, so that's why you pretty much, because the top's always going to be nice and smooth and polished, and then those vacuum clamps are really going to be able to get a good seal and hold that material down. Do you know how much force that puts?
I don't know the poundage of force, but it's fairly significant because we have to do a lot of pads just because of the support of the stone, so
sure.
There's a crack. So yeah, I mean, when you think about all that vacuum force on it, it's a fair amount, and the machine's pushing against it with the tooling to a degree. So yeah, it's got to stay in place. So
right. Okay.
Yeah, I don't know the number on the actual.
Okay. I guess we don't. I mean, we're dealing with. I mean, you've seen the pictures of my machine. You've seen my machine in person. Yeah. This is where I'm going to put up a picture. It's like the one that I did with the can on it, and then I'll put up the picture that you sent with the can of Coke on it.
It's a fair amount. I think a good example is when the vacuum is on, obviously you can't move it at all. When the vacuum's off, most of the stone is heavy enough that it's really hard to move on those
sure.
pads too. How we move it on those pads is you it's a float function, so it reverses the vacuum and pushes air, and it becomes almost,
like an air hockey table.
Exactly.
And it just glides on it. So do you actually draw a vacuum through those clamps? So you're not actually putting compressed air through it, and then it creates a suction
it's an
through
actual
a venturi
draw.
or something. Okay,
Yeah.
so it actually draws. Interesting. Because I would imagine they're about yay big.
Yeah,
so.
we have a variety of ones.
Okay, and then the number of square inches then multiplies your suction, and then can really create a fair amount of force.
Yep. And we're watching our vacuum to make sure we have about 25. I'm not sure if it's pounds of vacuum. We'd have to look that up, but it's about 25 is on our scale. We could look at that scale out there to see.
Okay, because if that's 25 pounds per square inch, and if you've got 100 square inches, that's over a ton.
Yeah,
that's a ton and a quarter of holding power.
that would definitely be significant.
Yeah.
For sure. So
any cutouts in like for a sink or for the faucets, that's all done with the water jet.
Correct.
Yeah. Okay.
You can, some shops, if you don't have a water jet, then they call it a finger bit on that CNC. That will, essentially it's small like your finger, and it'll penetrate and then grind it out.
Okay.
That is done by actually a fair amount of shops that don't have water jets.
Sure.
There's probably actually, when I think about it, there's more shops that would do that if they have a CNC than
I would imagine that would be slower than the water
slower.
jet, because that water jet's pretty darn fast.
Yep. And even when it comes to faucet holes, we'll water jet them because it's so much faster than using a core bit. We have a core bit in our tool rack for certain situations where we can't water jet it, but most of the time we water jet it because it's much faster than that. On that core bit.
Now, the arm for the water jet uses a different table or bed for the material, so you have to move it between the two machines.
Correct. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so we'll load an entire slab. Granite comes to us in roughly 10 by 5 to 6 feet high slabs, and we'll drop that on the water jet table. It gets all cut to 3/16 oversize every piece, and then that goes to the CNC, and then that's what takes it down to the right proper size.
Okay. That looks like your new skid steer showing up.
Yeah.
I was, you got the camera.
You're gonna record it all.
Skid steer out there.
Yeah, I better go catch him.
I did make you a little something on the old CNC laser.
Very cool.
With that, so
That's really cool. So that etched that? Oh, that's the laser that you.
Yeah, that's the laser.
That's new.
That's newer. It's just a year ago I got that.
That's awesome.
So.
Well, that was a fun time at Paramount Granite, talking with my friend Aaron and getting a look at some of their equipment that they use to cut and polish their countertops. And it's really kind of fun to see those real big industrial machines. The cool thing is when you look at what they do, it's just exactly the same as what we do here, the basics. We've got a Z-axis, we've got X and Y. So our small machine's doing very much the same as theirs. They do have the water on there because they're cutting the granite. They also have a tool changer, which is kind of cool. But the basics, we've got X, Y, and Z. So anyway, stay tuned for next time, and we will show you a bunch of footage of that machine in action, also the water jet in action. And a big shout out and thank you to my friend Aaron Berquist at Paramount Granite for giving us the tour and talking with us. See you next time.
Oops.
Hi, I'm AT from CNC at Home. If you like our content, help support our channel by clicking on subscribe and liking our videos. Thank you for watching this video. Have fun with your CNC at Home projects.